What's up, cooks? It is Wednesday. How are you doing this week? Today, we're going to talk about cooking frustrations because I've been having a lot of frustrations lately. Also, I got something in this box. We're going to talk a little bit about baker's percentages in bread making, and I have something in this box that'll help us with that. I'm Amy, and I am on a mission to become a better cook. Hit the subscribe button below to join me. Now, what's up? It's Wednesday. Let's do this. Happy Wednesday, y'all.
What you drinking over there, boo?
Kool-Aid.
Kool-Aid. That wouldn't be some of that stuff that we had around New Year's, would it be?
No.
No?
So, how are you guys doing? It's been a long week. It's cold outside. We had some snow. Now we have some heat. Then we're going to get some cold again next week. Eric caught a cold. So I've been doing my best to not get it. So I'm like dousing him with Lysol and scrubbing him with Clorox wipes.
And lighter fluid?
And that too. And I'm trying to avoid it. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully I can avoid it. So I have something in this box that's going to help us with bread making. And one of the things about bread making is measurements. Measurements are really important. And one of the frustrations I have is I took a couple cooking classes, so I sort of learned bread making a little bit from more like the commercial side. So everything I'm used to making is like in huge quantities. And I want to be able to scale what I know down to the home size. Also, I want to be able to scale between loaves. So if I have a recipe that has, is like 6-8 cups of flour, but I only want to use 4, how do I convert that? It's very difficult to convert that. It's also very difficult to know how the dough is supposed to be consistency-wise, because depending on the type of dough you want to make for the type of bread, the hydration changes. So some bread requires a really stiff dough, and some bread requires a really sticky dough. So you can take the same kind of bread formula, and depending on how you hydrate it, you can end up with a bagel dough or ciabatta versus a brioche, depending on what you add to it and what kind of hydration you use. And a lot of times it's difficult because it's like, what kind of bread are we trying to make, and how sticky or stiff do we want the dough? That is really going to depend on how it's hydrated. So in a professional environment, everything is done by baker's percentages. And I don't really want to go into how baker's percentages are done. I can just tell you this. When you're talking about baker's percentages, you're just talking about the percentage of water in comparison to flour. So the flour is the base. So the flour is deemed 100%. And if you want to make a dough that's like 55% hydration, 60% hydration, 70% hydration, you add the water in that percentage to the dough. So the dough amount is, say, I'm just going to say 1,000 grams, whatever, right? If you want a bagel dough, you're just going to hydrate it to a certain level. If you want a brioche, you're going to hydrate it to another level. Of course, you're going to add other things like eggs and all this kind of stuff depending on the type of bread. But the basic bread formula is driven by how the dough is hydrated. And the dough, the flour is always 100%. So the flour is 100%, then you might hydrate something to 65% would be the water. So it's very complicated. We're going to have an entire show based on baker's percentages, but I got a little tool here that automatically calculates the baker's percentage, and it's a scale, and it allows you to change the hydration levels. It calculates it for you. So whether you want to make a nice crusty, country loaf with a crumb on it with big holes in it, but if you want to take sort of the same recipe and change it into a sandwich loaf, you can change the hydration and make a tighter crumb so you get a sandwich loaf that stands up and is soft like that. So you say, what do I have in here? Well, let's open this up and I'll show you what it is. This, if you want to start taking your bread baking to another level, and you have issues with math, this will help. But not only this, just moving to baker's percentages instead of doing it by cups, because baker's percentages is going to let you scale to different size recipes really easy, because no matter if you say I want a 2-pound loaf and your 2-pound loaf is 3.5 cups or 4 cups of flour, and you want to say I want to take my 4 cups of flour and I want to convert it into a 2-pound loaf recipe, do you say, oh, then do I add 8 cups of flour? It doesn't really end up being like that, because baking never comes out like that, right? If you know a baker's percentage, my flour is 100% at 4 cups, and I want to hydrate it to 70, I can take the same amount and put in 6 cups of flour and hydrate that to 70%, and I should come out with the same type of dough. So if you either do it in cups, it's easier to do it in grams, right? Because cups is very unpredictable. So I sort of have two things here, and one's going to help with the other. So this is the My Way scale. And you say, oh, okay, it's just a regular kitchen scale. This scale calculates baker's math. So is the perfect multi-purpose scale boasting a removable LCD cover that protects brilliantly even the messiest work environments. And a new feature is baker's percentage weighing. And we're going to have to see how this works, because I'm definitely not an expert. So it does grams, kilograms, pounds, ounces. Great method for calculating ingredients in percentages, easy to clean. And also, I got this little weight set. And let me open this up first. I'm going to use this. I'll put links to all this down in the description. I'm going to use this for this scale and for my other scales. These are weights, and what they do is they allow you to calibrate your scale. So this is a little set that comes in, these are grams. I'm going to have to look at the description and see what is what. But you put this on your scale, and then you can calibrate it to make sure that your scale is correct. And this is like a little thing you can use to adjust your scale with. So those are scale weights. And these are pretty cheap. I think this was like, I don't know, only a couple bucks. So let's see about this scale. And I'm really glad that this has a user manual because I need to learn how to use this thing. Yeah. Certificate, warranty, feedback, how to use the baker's percentage function. And these are their other products. I'm definitely going to have to take a look at that. Okay. Yeah, and the thing comes off for cleaning on this thing. This cover is removable. Okay. So here's our plate. And you can remove this to clean it. Sweet. And it has this cover on it, so when you're using it, you don't get it dirty. When using the scale, be certain that the clear protective faceplate cover is not touching the underside of the tray. If you lift it up too high, it could touch the underside. Okay, I'm touching it. Kilograms, mode, ounces, pounds and ounces, pounds, grams. So I have the little weight here. I put it on there and it came up 21, 20. That's kind of interesting. I wonder how much this one weighs. 10. It's pretty accurate. So it says the way you do this, you're going to put a bowl on here and you're going to press the tear button to tear it out to 0. Then you're going to add your first ingredients into the bowl, which is the flour. And the flour is 100%. Once you establish that, you press the percent button. You now unload the flour into your mixing bowl and you empty the bowl. You put the empty bowl back onto here and you'll see the percent displayed. And you're ready to start loading your next ingredients. Once you start adding your next ingredients, you will see the percentage go up in relation to the flour that you just had on there. So when you add the water and the percent gets to where you want for your recipe, then you know you have the right amount of water for your recipe. That way, you can write your recipes just in baker's percentage, because you can say, 1,000 grams of flour is 100%. Now, if you want to make bagels, you're going to hydrate it to this amount. If you want to make ciabatta, you're going to hydrate it to this amount. If you want to make sandwich bread, you're going to hydrate it to this amount. If you want to make brioche, you're going to hydrate it to this amount. So if you want, you can always, you don't have to have like tons and tons of different recipes, as long as you know the baker's percentage of each one of those types of breads. Then you just establish how much flour you need for the number of loaves you want to make. If you want to make a 2-pound loaf, you can have the amount equivalent to 3.5-4 cups of flour. If you want 2 2-pound loaves, whatever that is, you just need to know how much flour you need for how many loaves you want to make. So you can always scale the recipe no matter how many loaves you want to make. So if you have a dinner roll recipe and you normally make 12 dinner rolls on a regular basis, and you make those based on baker's percentage, if you have a party and you're going to have 25 people over and you need 40 rolls, all you have to do is scale that based on baker's percentage and you will have the exact same roll that you make on a regular basis. You can make that for a crowd and not have to worry about messing with the math. Uh-oh, here comes the math boy. He's here to correct me, right?
In case any of y'all are wondering, if I make enough for a dozen and all of a sudden I need 3 dozen or 4 dozen,
why don't I just make 2, 3, 4 times whatever I normally make, right? That means you got 2, 3, 4 dough balls. What Amy's proposing is you make one big dough ball based on some magic math, and you don't have to go through the whole process 2, 3, 4 times. You just do it once, right?
So baker's percentage allows you to scale the recipe up and down. It allows you to take a wide variety of different kinds of breads and make that a lot easier than having to have a bunch of different recipes. If you just know your basic formula, what hydration level you need, and what additional things you need, like some recipes need 2% salt. So it's 2% of the weight of the flour is the salt. And if you eat bread and you realize that that's the salt level you like, you can take that 2% and apply it to all kinds of different recipes because that's the salt level you like in the bread. You can, so I'm just learning this. I can tell you I'm not an expert in any shape or form, but I will tell you in some amount of time, I will be a lot better at it than I am now. That's why I brought the scale.
One other practical of all this. When we did the 9-loaf challenge in the Bosch, we had no idea. You could say in your math head, okay, 3 cups or whatever times 9 is this amount. We had a professional cookbook that made like 40 quarts of dough. But because it was based on baker's percentage, and Amy's like, this thing can't make 40 pounds of dough. I said, how much can it make? 14, 15 pounds? Let's aim for that. And magically, each loaf will be, 14 pounds of 5 by 9 or whatever it was. And it all actually worked. I know it sounds
He calculated it out using the percentages and it worked.
And then I actually did it the traditional way, like pulling teeth and using Google and the calculator, and it also worked. But the baker's percentage was so easy, especially when you do it in grams. When you do it in English standards, it also works. It's a little different, but the grams, it's just a math issue. So, yeah, I support it.
So we're going to learn to bake bread using baker's percentages and using this scale. So stay tuned and let's see what I can do with this, right? Also, this goes back into the issue that I had at the beginning, cooking frustration. Me and Eric were having this conversation the other day, and so this comes back around to what I was talking about in the introduction to this video. And as you can tell, I'm sort of fumbling around because my knowledge level of baker's percentages is only here, right? And me and Eric had this conversation the other day, and it sort of got kind of interesting because I was trying to explain to him my frustrations because the more I learn how to cook, I really think that I have a gap. And I'm trying to figure out what that gap is. Because when you're learning to cook, you have 2 aspects of learning to cook. You have your research and your study, and you also have getting in the kitchen and practicing. And I've always come from this thing like I always have to succeed at everything all the time. And right now, I'm very frustrated because I feel like my knowledge level is increasing and the dishes that I can cook has increasing. My skill level has increased, but I'm at a point right now where I can't say that I'm stalled. I think I'm frustrated because I feel like I'm not doing enough of both, right? I'm not studying enough, studying the techniques enough, and I'm not practicing enough. Because every time I have a failure, it's like everything, I'm just like, I'm giving up. I'm sick of this. I'm not getting anywhere. And you're back.
The word depression figures in here somewhere.
Yeah, and it leads to you being depressed and stressed because it's like, number one, I feel like my skills aren't progressing. And number two, I get frustrated when I don't have successes. And I just want you guys to know that if you have those feelings, you are not alone, because I have those feelings as well. I have frustrations because there are things that I just am having trouble mastering. Basic things. I'm trying to make a really good basic white cake. And I've made it a few times, and I just haven't gotten there.
It's edible, but it's not like what you expect.
And some of it is I'm so used to eating prepackaged or engineered cake that has gums and stabilizers and gives you a mouthfeel. And it's so difficult for me to come back and make a homemade cake that gives me that same,
because we're so
what I'm looking for.
We're so used to it. This certain texture.
I'm so used to manufactured that when I get in the kitchen and try to make it, I get frustrated because it's almost like I'm cooking to that instead of cooking to what I want something to be.
But then you have other stuff going on. You go out to eat at a restaurant, you eat a fajita or something that tastes really good, you do it at home, and unless you add 5 pounds of salt to it, because sometimes that's what the secret of the success is just over salting, because we as Americans, that's all we expect is salt. You're like, I shouldn't be eating that much. It just tastes different. And then you have other stuff. You got recipes all over the internet. You got recipes in cookbooks. You wonder how many of these things are even tested, because when you go to cook them,
yeah, exactly. You pull a recipe on Pinterest, a beautiful picture, and you cook it, and you're like, this recipe is a disaster. How do they get that out of this? Are they really testing it? Or are they not tasting it? They're just cooking it for it to look good.
And then they're photoshopping it. And then you try it.
And you try it. Like 2 weeks ago, I made a pineapple upside down cake, and it looked beautiful on the picture. Because usually what I like to do is when I want to learn a dish, I go out and do some research. I look and see how other people are doing it. I look at variations of the recipe. I look how it's done classically, how it's done modern, and figure out, okay, where am I going to start as a starting point? Because I always want to make the recipe my own, but I need to start somewhere. So I start by grabbing 3 or 4 things, and I make those, and I say, okay, I like this, I like this, I like this. I want to change this about that. This doesn't come out right. So when I do that, as I cook them, and they're just bad. And it's very frustrating because having a failure after doing so much work,
it's kind of a turnoff.
It is a turnoff. It's a total turnoff. People get discouraged and then they don't want to cook. And I think little successes help us. Because when something's right, something tastes good, when he eats the whole plate of something, when he starts giggling and he tells me, oh, it's sort of good, right? That's a win. And I don't know. I just think that cooking frustration is real. Being frustrated that what you cook didn't come out the way you wanted to. And the bottom line is, it takes both. It takes study and it takes practice. And then it takes more study and it takes more practice. And you literally might have to make 50 white cakes before you master the recipe. How many pots of chili did we make before I started winning?
Oh, I don't know. You stole my recipe, tweaked it a little bit, and then people say, I like hers better. Even though
I did a lot of losing.
She did a couple of different tweaks.
Does barbecue, and he has smokers for days. And the very first time we smoked a turkey, it literally tasted like a tire. And then the next time he smoked something, it was a little better. And then it was a little better. And then he would cook something and it was junk again. Right?
Well, you have to learn how to use your equipment, so it's not just
And then you
recipes.
go back again and it's better. And what's sad is you start improving and then you cook something and it bombs. And you're like, oh my God, I'm back to the beginning. Part of it is your expectation is raised. Like the very first time you smoke something and you've never done it before, it's like, wow, this is the best I ever had. And then the more you have, then the better you want it. So then it starts not being great to you as much.
But there's other expectations out there. Say you eat at a particular pancake breakfast
Yes.
place, and you will never get a pancake recipe out of Amy until she can steal that one. Because as far as she's concerned, Hungry Jack is convenient, but...
I'm working on a pancake recipe and I haven't made one that lives up to that pancake. And I've been working on it, and someday I will be.
So she's got tough standards. So that could be a problem. Maybe you ate some food once in your life that tasted really great, and as far as you're concerned, that's the pinnacle of success. If you can master
If
that.
I can't do that, then I'm just not going to do it.
So if you can't have it, then you don't want anything, do you?
But I hear you. People tell me all the time that they're frustrated, and I'm frustrated too. But we are going to continue to chug along, right? I am going to make a moist and delicious white cake, vanilla cake. I'm going to make one. I don't care if I got to go to Costco and buy me a 50-pound sack of flour and make 50 cakes. I'm going to make a unbelievable vanilla white cake.
So if I can't waddle into the kitchen because Amy made a few too many failures, then you'll know what happened.
So hang on, because I will have a video about it eventually. But I appreciate everybody hanging on, because sometimes a lot of people ask me for a lot of different things. Make this, and it's not that I'm like avoiding it. It's just I am learning along with you. And I don't want to bring out a video with a recipe until I know it is really good. So that when you make my recipes, you will know that that recipe is a good one. So, you know, for me to throw out thousands of recipes, la-di-yaddy-yaddy, right? I don't want to do that. When you come and you make one of my recipes, I want it to be really good.
And the people that take the time to write comments saying, you know, I've read all these different recipes, or I've tried to cook all these stuff, and then they comment on ours saying that ours was the best, or ours was really spectacular. You know, we really appreciate that, because
We really appreciate it.
because that's some motivation. And it'd be no different than you cooking for your family. If your family was all negative all the time, who'd want to cook, right? But if they praise and they say, hey, we really like you, or at least they appreciate you trying and you get better, that's always good. Being positive is always a good thing.
So bear with me, because they are in here somewhere, and I'm just got to get them out. Right?
Sure.
See ya.
I got a cold. She doesn't like me right now.
So, what's up, guys? It's Wednesday. I hope you're having a great week. I hope you cook some great stuff for the Super Bowl, and we got spring coming up pretty soon. Eric's not too happy about that because he wants more snow.
My snow melted.
So he can use his snowblower some more. But I'm ready for spring, right? So it's right around the corner. So stay tuned for spring, right? If you like this video, please subscribe below, leave me a comment and a like, and visit my website at amylearnstocook.com. You can also catch me on social media at Pinterest and Twitter at Amy Learns to Cook. And join my Facebook and come and let's talk about your frustrations. Let's hammer them out, work through recipes, and get this done for both of us, right? Facebook.com/groups/Amy Learns to Cook. And on Instagram, I'm at Cooking with Amy.